I'm joined this morning by Nancy Sarnoff from the Houston Chronicle. Nancy, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for asking me to be here.
Absolutely. So we wanted to have Nancy come on and hear her perspective. She reports about real estate for the Houston Chronicle in a nutshell. But we wanted to hear her perspective because she does have a very interesting perspective. So if you could just start off telling us a little bit about your career, how you started reporting for real estate, and also, for one of the biggest newspapers in the United States.
Yes. I've been very lucky in my career to have ended up at the Houston Chronicle, where I grew up mostly in Houston. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a dream job. But yeah, so I actually got into journalism a little bit later in my adult career. Mm-hmm. And I had been working at an oil and gas magazine, and then an opportunity came up at the Houston Business Journal, and this was in the late 90s. Mm-hmm. And so I went there. I started covering real estate and realized it was probably the most high profile beat on the paper. And I had some really good mentors there. Mm-hmm. And so I really loved what I was doing. And then the job came open at the Chronicle. So it was really the logical step for me to throw my hat in the ring for that job. And absolutely. I did. And just had the opportunity to do it. And it's been really fun.
That's good. Just kind of all worked out there, huh? So you've been covering real estate in Houston for many years now. What are some of the stories or trends that you've found most intriguing in your career?
Sure. So affordability has been a really interesting topic to be covering over the years. As you know, Houston has always been known as an affordable city, mm-hmm. Place with a great place to move if you have a certain budget for housing, and it's really changed, as you know, as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially inside the urban core, mm-hmm. kind of inside the Beltway, really. Mm-hmm. It's really hard to find a house if you don't have a 6-figure income.
Right.
And that's been something that's been a thread through a lot of our stories. Mm-hmm. Also, I would say, downtown, everyone loves to talk about downtown, but the growth there has been really substantial. Mm-hmm. in the years that I've been covering real estate. When I started, it was sort of known as the 9-to-5 place. Mm-hmm. People didn't live downtown. There weren't really parks and things to do. Mm-hmm. And that's changed tremendously. There's been thousands of new apartments that have been built, and it's pretty dynamic place now.
It is. It's changed so much. In the last 10 years, it's changed a lot. So in your view, what sets the Houston real estate market apart from, other markets around the country?
Well, we have no zoning here.
Mm-hmm.
And while we do have a lot of regulations on building, which makes us look like any other big city, I think, mm-hmm. We don't have true formal zoning. So it sort of leads to neighborhood battles. Mm-hmm. when something's proposed. The Ashby high rise was also a story that I covered for many years, and it still hasn't concluded.
Yeah, but I was going to say probably still covering, right?
Right, exactly. And that was, as a lot of your viewers probably know, is developers proposing a high rise next to an affluent single family neighborhood, mm-hmm. and the neighbors really, took to the streets and fought the developer, and mm-hmm. it was a lot of ups and downs, and the city was involved, and there were lawsuits, and now there have been other similar battles. Mm-hmm. And the other thing I would say that sets Houston apart is because we are so tied to the oil industry, mm-hmm. that really, we experience booms and busts in housing on a sort of similar trajectory than as oil prices.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned affordability. I'm sure that's always a hot topic. People always are interested in that. But what are some other real estate stories that you think, capture a lot of reader attention?
Right. So stories about housing design, trend stories. Today on the front page of the paper, we have a story about builders developing smaller homes. So, the 3,000 square foot McMansion is not as in vogue maybe as it once was.
Right.
And they're now really trying to get the try to answer to affordability by building these smaller homes, in some cases 1,000 square feet, 1,200 square foot homes, which is a really interesting trend because, like I said, it answers the affordability factor, but it also kind of shows how builders have been able to redesign their products so well and really use all the space that they have to design, livable homes. So those are some big ones. Anything about home sales, I write about the HAR numbers every month, and those are, people love to read about the latest in the housing market, and I always try to bring in some sort of consumer or Houston voice, or as many as possible to sort of illustrate what's happening out there in the market. And then lastly, this is important, grocery stores.
Grocery stores, yes.
I know this is not necessarily housing related, but grocery stores kill on the website. People love reading about grocery stores.
Yeah.
Opening, closing.
It's true. And you're saying it doesn't have anything to do with real estate, but it does though, because people want to buy a home where they're going to have convenient amenities and things nearby, like you said, parks and dog parks and grocery stores. So of course we want to know about, where's the good grocery stores. That's because that's where I want to live.
That's right.
Absolutely. So you're very used to breaking news. Someone just passed me a note to read another question to you that I'd like to hear your answer on. So Zillow just announced it's adding Houston as a market to do its Zillow offers. So it's expanding direct buying and selling of homes. What do you think the overall impact will be of this move in the Houston market?
That's a really interesting question. Something I've been trying to think about more because, I think people in this industry would call that a disruptor to the way things have been traditionally done. And lately, probably in the past year, I would say, I feel like these disruptors are really gaining traction. They're, a few years ago, I would write about an occasional, discount brokerage that would come into the market. But now you're seeing these national platforms with a lot of financial backing, entering the market to do things a different way. And, the Zillow offers thing is a company called Open Door is doing the same thing. They'll basically, if you meet their qualifications, if you have a house that meets their qualifications, they will buy your house in cash and do it relatively quickly. And I think that it is, I think it's something that's definitely going to be here to stay. And I think there will be more players that come out. They may not all pan out. They may not all be successful in the market. But I think that I feel like there's a real turn of the tide.
Yeah.
So, it's something that I'm going to be watching and writing about as we go forward.
Absolutely. We had Jeremy Conaway, who's HAR strategic architect, on last week, and we were talking a lot about, disruptors and things that are just changing in the industry, because things are just changing very fast. So lots of great content for you, I'm sure, right? So I want to just talk really quick about Hurricane Harvey, because you were with the Chronicle at that time as well. Were you surprised by Houston's resiliency after Hurricane Harvey?
A lot of people talk about Houston's resiliency, and it certainly is a resilient place, and there were so many positive stories that came out of the hurricane, and in terms of, sort of the people that helped and the communities that came together. And yes, I mean, a lot of people were able to get back into their homes. A lot of people were able to move to new places. But I think that there are still so many people out there that would hear something like that and say, well, I don't feel very resilient because I'm still living in a FEMA trailer, and FEMA's about to take the trailers away. We just had my colleague Rebecca Schutz just had a story on the FEMA trailers, and these are people that don't necessarily live in the, in the city of Houston or in the urban core, but they're, out in the suburbs and out in the outskirts of town, and they don't know what they're going to do because they don't have the money to pay to repair their homes because they didn't have insurance, because maybe their home wasn't in a floodplain. And even in, some of the wealthier neighborhoods, people who didn't have insurance and maybe were living on credit, they now are stuck in a difficult situation as well. And you still drive around some of those neighborhoods, and you see that it's not very resilient, or it still has a long way to go to kind of get back to the way it was.
Yeah, that's very true. So you mentioned there were a lot of stories that came out of it. What were some of the stories that you personally found the most moving?
I guess just the stories of the communities, and I don't want to say that generically because I knew a lot of people who got out and helped and just sacrificed their time. Like a mom at my daughter's school who I'm on the PTA with, she was part of this neighborhood where everyone got together and they basically created these stores out in front of people's yards, and they took donations, and they had like, okay, in front of this house we have the clothes store, and here we have the food store, and of course they're called stores, but no one had to pay for anything. And I just remember seeing her doing that right after the hurricane and thinking like, wow, her house didn't flood, she's got a life, she's got 2 kids, she's got she's got a lot of obligations, but she was out there all the time. And a guy who teaches at my daughter's Taekwondo school, got in his truck and started rescuing people. And I feel like a politician naming all these people, but hearing those stories to me were really moving. And that, that sort of focusing on the positive aspects, but there were some moving stories that were moving in a really sad way. I was downtown when the hurricane hit, sort of sequestered down there for a few days, and I ended up working at the shelter reporting at the George R. Brown, and just saw some really sad situations, and it was just, it was something that I had never seen before. And, hopefully at the paper, we worked really hard to get information out, and hopefully we were there doing, what we could to sort of benefit society in this really, really tragic time.
Yeah. There are definitely a lot of stories, and I know I read some in the Chronicle and things like that as well, but a lot of stories of sacrifice, and I think that's important for people to hear and see. Absolutely. So I want to take a second just to see if we have any questions. If you're watching and you have any questions for Nancy, just go ahead and type them into the comments, and we will we will get to those. There's a lot of people saying good morning this morning. Good morning, everyone. So you have a podcast.
Yes.
Yeah. So tell us about that.
Yes. So I have a Houston Chronicle podcast. The tagline is the dirt, the deals, the people, the places. It's about Houston real estate, but it really expands to, broader topics, everything from parking to parks to, I did a series on the hurricane.
Sure.
Just, really, real estate touches almost anything, almost everything, rather. And so it's called Looped In, and it is, you can download it on iTunes or any of your podcast apps. And you can also get it on Houston Chronicle, HoustonChronicle.com/podcasts, where you will see Looped In, and you will see a couple of our other Houston Chronicle podcasts. We have one on barbecue, which has been really popular, and politics and sports. So
you need one for grocery stores.
I have been saying that exact thing for a long time now. So
yeah, or just maybe community. I mean, I'm sure that's stuff you can cover on yours, since it's real estate related.
No, I like the way you're thinking. Yeah. I think you could have an entire podcast dedicated to grocery stores.
Absolutely.
And I would love to do something like that because I spend a lot of time there.
Yeah. So also, in addition to Nancy's podcast, it's a good time for us to also announce that HAR just released a podcast 2 weeks ago. You can also subscribe to it anywhere where podcasts are available. It's called HAR On the Move. So go look those 2 podcasts up. And we'll provide some links and things like that in the comments after we finish up for you guys. So to follow up on some of the, we do have at least one question here. On some of the things that we're talking about, where do you see the Houston real estate market going in the next 5 to 10 years? We've talked about disruptors and different things, and of course the oil industry. There's always different dynamics that can impact it. But where do you see the real estate market going?
So as a reporter, whenever I ask that question, I usually get an eye roll or some comment about the crystal ball. So I kind of feel like it's my opportunity to say that now, but I think a lot of things that I've heard and things, the way I see things going is density, continuing to see density in the urban core, and as well as building on the outskirts of town. Some of those small homes that I mentioned earlier are being built in, this one town south of Richmond called Kindleton. I hadn't really heard much of that town at all, and so they're building homes there, and that's 30 miles south of, say, Sugarland. And so the sprawl will, I think, continue, but I think traffic is going to cause people to, if they work in Sugarland, then maybe they will live out in these, far-flung suburbs, just because of the commute. And affordability is going to continue to be something I think we talk about for a long time. And I think that if we don't address those issues, then everyone who's not making a really sweet salary is going to be living far out from the city. And that's not good.
Okay, so let's see what our viewers are saying here. So Jean asked, can you talk about the percentage of value Open Door is buying for? And if you're not that familiar, that's okay.
I don't have those kind of specifics because I believe Open Door just launched maybe a week ago. That they had their official launch. So I would have to get back to her, but I would be happy to to look into that more.
I mean, I can at least say personally from experience that if you know the value of your home, go on Open Door, and you can, there's no commitment to it. You can actually go in and just say, I'm just looking, and see what they offer you. And I would take that as your guess as to what they're doing. But from what I've seen, it isn't really far off of market value. So Mark asked, what happened to the featured neighborhood articles the Chronicle used to do?
Yeah, those were really good. My colleague Catherine Fieser wrote those for a long time, and really, Mark, just the way that the newspaper has evolved, and just new management comes in, and they see maybe a way to do things better or different, and so, not that this was a situation. The neighborhood profiles, I think, are something that people really miss and that people really valued. And now we're doing something a little bit different, where we've got this Sunday page where we are not promoting, but we are putting listings and deals, small deals, and then we have a feature, a deal of the week. And sometimes it's commercial focused, sometimes it's residential, but I can see us moving in the future to a place where we do more neighborhood profiles, because those are also really attractive to people.
Absolutely.
They always,
people love that hyper local information.
Right. And we're also launching a new section called Texas Inc., which is going to be on Mondays, and it's going to be a pretty substantial, sort of like a magazine about Houston and the economy, and it's going to have everything, from real estate to oil and gas to healthcare, a little bit of everything. And so there's going to be more opportunity there as well to talk about neighborhoods and to write about neighborhoods.
Great. And so you said that was called Texas Inc.?
Yes.
And that's going to be on Mondays?
Yes.
Okay. So Edward's asking, he said, good morning. In terms of disruptors, which platform or company do you see as the greatest threat to realtors?
I would want to wait a little bit and watch and see how they're doing it. It seems like some of their business models are similar, but I think Zillow is obviously a name that now pretty much everyone knows. Open Door is not a name just yet. So Zillow has that brand recognition, which I think makes it pretty formidable competitor. And, I noticed there's a company called Rex that has been buying ads in our paper, and they've been buying full page Sunday ads. And I've been seeing those and thinking, okay, well, that's not cheap to do that. So they must have some financial heft behind them as well. But yeah, to answer the question again, sorry, it's not a great answer, but I would just feel like I would have to see sort of how they,
see what happens in the next few months or so,
and how consumers are liking it, if they're, if they think it's something that has value. So
you said that company was Rex, REX?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
So we all need to go Google it. So Matt asked, if someone has an idea for a story, how can they suggest that to you?
Oh, yes, of course. I love story ideas, trends. If you have a house that you're selling and it has some sort of interesting story or backstory to it, I love to hear about that. And you can reach me on email, nancy.sarnoff@cron.com. I am usually active on Twitter and Facebook, and my handle is nsarnoff. You can call me at the Chronicle, although people don't really do that anymore, do they? But yeah, email is probably the best.
Email, okay. Or at least get your attention on Twitter or something like that, right? Yeah. And we'll put up that information for everyone to see as well. Okay, so and actually it's up now. Are there any particular market areas that are good for real estate investments, especially for rental income?
Well, I think investors have, kind of seasoned investors have specific targets. I mean, they like to buy in the under $200,000, and those homes are usually, far out in the suburbs. I had a really interesting podcast guest a couple months ago. I think we talked about investing after Harvey.
Right.
And that would probably, if someone is interested in investing in real estate, I think that would be an interesting podcast to listen to or episode to listen to, because this guy had been doing it for quite a long time and knew all of the neighborhoods. I mean, it's again, I'm going to get we'd be talking about Harvey, but there were a lot of neighborhoods that were all of the homes flooded out, by the reservoirs. And those have since become rental neighborhoods because investors bought the homes. And so, with Houston's sprawl and with Houston's sort of lack of barriers, developers are going to build, as much and wherever they can. And some of those neighborhoods are, lower price neighborhoods that have been attractive to investors.
Yeah. I think it speaks to investor confidence as well. You're talking about the neighborhoods that are now rental neighborhoods. I mean, they're going in, they're investing, they're flipping these houses and either renting them or, in some cases selling them. But I think it speaks to the confidence that hopefully Harvey is an event that we won't see, again, hopefully, at least in our lifetime.
Right. And on the other hand, to that, a lot of these investors are buying these houses for 50 cents on the dollar, fixing them up and getting flood insurance for, just a few $100s a year. So
that's true.
If it floods again, then they just
clean it up again.
They just clean it up again. Exactly. And
that's true.
Yeah. There's been this cycle that's happened that's been unfortunate.
Yes. So Matt actually chimed in about Rex. He said they're a non-MLS real estate company. They're not a member of HAR, although it operates in Houston and markets by saying it isn't a part of the MLS. So that's their spin, is that they're not a part of the MLS. So,
okay. Yeah. Okay. So their reach, I guess, will be limited. That's what that means, right?
Yes. Essentially, yes. Okay. Don't see any other questions coming up this time. Do you have anything else that you want to share with us or promote? We talked about your podcast. Is there anything else that you want to promote or let us know about?
Just that, the Houston Chronicle is, we have two websites. Chron.com is the free website that has it's got news, it's got breaking news, but it also has a lot of entertainment and things like that. And then we also have HoustonChronicle.com, which is our subscriber site, which is a really awesome site with all of our investigations and our enterprise or the work that a lot of the reporters spend a lot of time on, and it's worthy to check out. So
Absolutely.
I would just encourage everyone to do that. HoustonChronicle.com.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you again, Nancy, for joining us. This has been very informative, and I do appreciate that. And I had no idea that grocery stores were such a good topic.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll start talking about them on here too.
Well, thanks for having me. This is my first Facebook Live, and I think it was obvious.
No, you were great. Thank you so much. And I'm sure our viewers enjoyed watching you as well. So that is it. We're going to wrap today's segment. Just a reminder, we'll be back next Monday at 9 a.m. We're actually going to have Grant Harpold back. If you don't remember him, he joined us a few months ago. He's HAR's legal counsel, and he is going to give us a legal update. Some of you may have seen him at HAR Engage conference. So we're going to be talking with him about, just a legal update from him. We always like getting his perspective here as well. So thank you again. We will see you next time. Bye.